Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. We're talking pools today, some pool maintenance tips, and also hot tubs. And we had an interview with Matt from Swim University, and also we have a sponsor this week.
Moso Natural.
And there you can find them at mosonatural.com, and Moso is spelled M-O-S-O. So why don't we cover some basic pool maintenance first? So at least once a week you should be skimming the surface, getting out the debris with a...
What does that mean when you say skimming? I mean, for if somebody's listening to this and they don't have a pool or thinking about getting a pool.
And that was one question. We'd get people who have never owned a pool at the hardware store, and you know, a couple times a year we'd have pools for sale, the large inflatable pools, and you know, they'd say, what's the process? What do I have to do? So you need a skimmer, so it's a little... What is it? You had a pool.
It's like a net.
That you just get all the...
It's like a flat net.
So you get all the leaves. Do they have any that's more like a butterfly net, or
No.
not really? It's mainly just a flat surface. So you're getting all the bugs, the leaves,
Right,
any
just
of the
on the
debris.
top of the surface.
And then once you clean the top of the surface, and you should be doing this at least once a week, and the more often you do it, if you did this daily or once every other day, it's putting less impact on the chemicals in the pool.
It also depends on your backyard where you have your pool. If you have a lot of trees in your area and you got a lot of leaves and stuff falling in.
Smart. In fact, you should probably think about trimming that stuff back if you have a pool so it's not falling into the water. And then once you skim off anything on the top, you'd want to clean the sides of the pool, and depending on the type of material you have, if you have vinyl, you want to make sure you have a very soft brush. If you have concrete pool, like an in-ground pool, then you'd probably use a stiffer brush. Work all those particles down, and then you want to vacuum the bottom at least once a week, and again, more often is better. And then your skimmer baskets, you want to clean those weekly also. And then the next thing you want to do weekly is check your water level, because it has to be high enough, again, for your manufacturer, what height they want it, so that the skimmer baskets are working properly and there's water moving into the pump and the filter properly. And then the key thing is you want to be checking and balancing your water chemistry. So once a week, we're going to be checking the free available chlorine, and you want that between...
What is it?
So your free available chlorine is chlorine that isn't bound up with organic material or contaminants. So they have a kit that will actually tell you how much chlorine is available to sanitize your pool. And the minute it's bound up, the minute it's killing these bacteria and viruses and contaminants, oils and things on your skin, once it's bound up, this test doesn't recognize it. So once a week you want to test for free available chlorine, and that's 1 to 3 parts per million. Then you want to check your bromine level, and that's 3 to 5 parts per million. And then the overall pH is 7.2 to 7.6. And that's basically what you're looking for once a week, those 3 tests. And you'll have a little test kit and some chemicals that you drop into these different cells, and you'll be able to match up the color to a chart, and that's going to tell you whether you're balanced or not.
Well, like the test kit that I had, it was, you just dunked it into the pool, into the water. You had to go pretty far down.
They recommend like 18 inches.
Right. And then you come up and it reached a certain water level. It was a mark. And then you just put the dyes on each side, and then you would just match it up to the chart on the side of the on the test kit.
So very easy to do.
Right,
But it's something that definitely should be looked at least once a week, and that's going to make a safer pool, because you really can build up algae and a lot of different contaminants.
Well, like one of my friends that lived down the street, they were kind of bad at maintaining their pool,
Really?
and but you go swimming and it would be almost slimy.
Slimy, yeah.
It was gross.
Algae and everything. So then once a week, most manufacturers recommend that you shock the pool, so you put a high dose of chlorine into the pool, and what this does is it kills everything. What's interesting, we talked about free available chlorine, and then once chlorine binds with all this organic matter, it turns into chloramines, and that's where your pool starts getting that really bad chlorine odor.
Right.
You can tell that there's a high volume of this in the pool. And what's weird, it doesn't seem like you would use chlorine to reduce the chlorine smell. But if you shock it once a week, you'll actually break down all those chloramines, and it will reduce the chlorine smell.
But it does depend on your water, right?
True.
Well, like when we first got our pool,
Okay.
we went to the pool store, and they set us up with the whole kit and stuff, and they wanted us to bring in a sample of our water after we filled up the pool.
That's smart.
So they thought we already added chemicals and stuff to it, but we just brought it in, and it was just from
Tap
the
water.
tap, and they're like, "Oh, it's pretty good." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." So
There's nothing to this pool business.
Yeah. So, but they set us up with a routine on how to maintain it. So
Yeah, and that's
it
the
wasn't
key routine. Yeah. So we're talking about the available chlorine. If it's below that 1, so you're looking for 1 to 3 parts per million. If it's below 1, you have to shock it. And by shocking it, it raises the chlorine level to like 5 to 10 parts per million.
Right, and you can't go swimming after you shocked it.
So you have to wait until that gets down to that 1 to 3 level before you enter the pool. And they say the best time is after sundown.
Right.
Shock it, and then you leave your pump and your filters running, and then it slowly dissipates. But it's sanitizing everything in the pool, killing
Well,
viruses.
having a pool when I was younger, and I helped maintain it all summer, and then when working at the hardware stores, I was really surprised by how much shock that we used to sell. I mean, in comparison, just plain chlorine, we sold a lot of shock.
Well, we sold it in the little bags, and we got it in these boxes, and we would go
just
through
the bottles,
boxes and
right?
boxes. Yeah,
the bottles of shock that we used to sell. I think people were just using that instead of, maintaining the chlorine level. I think they were just, okay, I'm going to shock it once a week.
So how did you guys maintain your chlorine level?
We had the chlorine, dispenser that floated in the pool.
Right, and that seems to be pretty common.
Yeah.
And easy to use. They say that the 3-inch discs of chlorine are probably the most economical, and chlorine is basically chlorine. There's a few different types you can buy depending on where you purchase it, and if you have a specialty pool place, you might have different types. But they say that basically it's all doing the same job of killing and sanitizing. So we talked about in a pool you want to keep your pH at a 7.2 to a 7.6, and pH is a measurement of either it's acidic or it's alkaline, so it's either basic or it's acid. And 7 is neutral. Anything below 7 is acidic, and anything above 7 is alkaline or base. And so I think, because in the hardware store we carried HTH products, and they had a very easy system. They had pH plus or pH minus, so you didn't have to worry too much about what type of acid do I put into it to lower the pH, or what type of base do I use to raise it.
Well,
so it made it very simple.
Like one of the first times that we were setting up that department, and they said, I had a customer come in and they're like, "Where's your muriatic acid?" I'm like, "What is that for? I've had a pool for years."
Right. And why?
What are you?
Are you crazy? Acid?
Like, you're gonna put that in your pool? But that's what they were used to using.
Sure. So. And depending on where you're shopping, you're going to either be buying bases or acids to adjust the pH. But if you're going to a local hardware store, they're probably one of the biggest companies is this HTH. And in fact, they actually have a very nice website. If you go to hthpools.com, they have a really nice volume calculator, so you can just plug in your dimensions, and it calculates the volume of water in your pool, which is important when you're setting it up sometimes for spring. And then it has a bunch of their products, but I like the products because they're very easy. It's alkalinity plus, pH minus. Depending on the calcium level, we'll talk about for monthly tests. They have calcium plus and metal minus.
Right.
So very simple. It's kind of like the granimals of pool supplies. So monthly, you have a couple other tests that you want to do, and you want to adjust your chemicals in alphabetical order. So A, B, C. The A would be alkalinity, and you're looking for 120 to 150 parts per million if you have a vinyl or a fiberglass pool. If you have a concrete pool, your alkalinity should be right in that 80 to 120 parts per million range. Then you're looking to test for bromine, and that should be 3 to 5 parts per million. The calcium hardness, and this is 180 to 220 parts per million. And depending on the manufacturer or your pool type, it can be 200 to 500 parts per million, but your manufacturer is going to suggest what you're looking for. And it's interesting with the calcium, it'll leave, if you have too much calcium in your pool, it'll leave that scale on the sides and parts. And if you don't have enough, it tries to draw calcium out of everything, so it's going to break down the grout in your pool if you have a concrete pool. And for a vinyl pool, it'll actually dry out the vinyl, so it's kind of an important test. Then you're also going to test monthly for dissolved solids. Most manufacturers suggest that you add an algicide once a month, or at least check your pool to see how it's handling that. And then you'd want to check your motor and your pump. You want to check the seals to make sure there's no leaks, and then check for leaks and cracks in the pool. And then if you have a saltwater, we'll talk a little bit about what saltwater pools are becoming more popular, you should test your salt level. So that would be your monthly tests.
I think now's a good time to talk about our sponsor for this episode.
It's the Moso Natural Air Purifying Bag, and it does an amazing job of taking odor out of the air. It's 100% bamboo charcoal, and it naturally absorbs odor, bacteria, pollutants, and allergens. And it lasts for up to 2 years. What's interesting is once a month, you take this bag, you put it out in direct sunlight, and it rejuvenates the ability for it to absorb pollutants in the air.
Yeah, you just have to let it sit in the sunlight for an hour.
Yeah. And then after 2 years, you cut these bags open. Because it's all natural, you can pour it into your garden, and it's actually very healthy for the soil. They make 4 different styles. One is a little small sock-like shape, and you can throw this in shoes or gym bags. They have a refrigerator style that has a suction cup that you can put right in the fridge.
I have one in mine.
Does a great job. In fact, we met them at one of the trade shows, and we thought that the product sounded so interesting. They were nice enough to give us a sample. We tested it, we liked it, and then we did a video or 2 on the YouTube channel.
Well, I'd always used baking soda in my refrigerator before,
Sure.
and it was a hassle because you had to remember, it only lasts 30 days, and, always buying new stuff. But I love this.
And it lasts for 2 years, so it's simple.
All I did was write the date on the side of it.
Smart, right?
And so in 2 years, I'll buy a new one.
There you go. And they have a small bag that you can use in cars and bathrooms. And it's highly, especially for a bathroom, bamboo from charcoal is highly absorbent with moisture. So it helps reduce the chance of growing mold and mildew. So again, a very simple, effective way to control moisture in a room. And then they have a large bag that you can put in any size room or your basement. Again, nice for controlling humidity if you have an unfinished basement. So you want to make sure it's out where air can flow, because air needs to flow through this bag for it to work properly. But it'll absorb smoke and paint. In fact, we had a couple people respond to the videos, sending us emails that said that they've used the product when they were painting, and
That's
it did a great job of absorbing paint. So if you're looking for an all-natural way to absorb odors in your house, and something that's easy, it's non-toxic, safe for anybody in the family, check out Moso Natural. They're at mosonatural.com. It's MOSO. So let's cover the steps on how to open a pool.
Okay.
So the first thing you want to do is clean around the cover before you remove it, because you don't want to knock debris into the pool. And then fill up your water to its normal level. You want to clean any equipment that you're putting in it, like your skimmers or ladders. And then you want to scrub the sides real well, vacuum it, and then skim the pool.
I always got that job.
Skimming the pool?
No, vacuuming. I had my dad made me get in the pool.
Because of your bad behavior?
No, just because I was really good at cleaning the pool.
That's good.
And it was cold.
Really? I'm sure. So you want to turn on the pump then and start your system. Then you're going to balance the chemistry. When you open a pool, you're going to first check for the alkalinity, and you want that to be about 120 to 150 parts per million. If you have a concrete pool, 80 to 120 is a good parts per million. The calcium hardness, you want it about 180 to 220 parts per million. And then you're going to let the pump run for about 8 hours before you test for pH. And then after balancing the pH, you want to let it run again for about 8 hours. then you're going to, after you've let it set, after balancing the pH, you want to have that time before you shock the pool. And you always want to shock the pool before you open it for the season.
Right.
And then what's interesting, which I didn't really realize, again, not having a pool as a kid, it can take up to a week or more to balance the pool properly before you're ready to open it. And in most cases, you're going to be letting that pump run the first few days for 24 hours a day, and then you want to start reducing the time during that week before you open it. And then you don't want to enter the pool until the chlorine is at that 1 to 3 parts per million.
Right.
Okay, so a couple tips on closing a pool. If you're in the snow belt, you want to balance your water count.
Where's that at?
That's anywhere where it gets snowy.
Yeah. Well, so.
So your pH, you want it 7.2 to 7.6. You want your alkalinity 80 to 120 parts per million. Your calcium hardness 180 to 220. And then you want to shock the pool and run your filter for 24 to 48 hours till your chlorine is at 1 to 3 parts per million. And then when you're closing your pool, many manufacturers recommend that you add an algicide. You're going to want to remove your skimmer baskets, your ladders, any cleaners that you have in the pool. Then you want to lower your pool water to about 6 to 18 inches lower than normal. And again, you want to look at your manufacturer and see what they recommend. You're going to drain all your pumps, the filtering equipment, and you want to blow out all the lines. You definitely, if you're in an area where it freezes, you don't want water sitting in anything. Then you're going to check everything. Just make sure it can't freeze. If you have diatomaceous earth filters, you're going to remove those. If you have like a cartridge filter, you're just going to pull that out and drain it and make sure nothing can freeze. And for sand filters, you're just going to drain the water out of it. You don't have to remove the sand. In fact, we'll talk a little more about filters in a minute here. But if you have any of your O-rings, this is something once a year you should be lubricating them. And you want to make sure that you're using a lubricant specifically designed for O-rings. You never want to use any petroleum-based lubricants because you're going to swell them up. They'll dry out. It'll shorten the life of it. And then you want to clean your pool and then cover your pool. And then for some above ground pools, you're going to use those air pillows. Mm-hmm. Did you guys use those?
Yep.
And then did you have a safety cover on yours? Or
no.
I think that's the law. I think in a lot of areas now you have to have these safety covers that'll stand up to somebody falling on it.
Right.
So you should probably look at some of the new restrictions. But then if you're in the the sun belt as opposed to the snow belt, you'd want to reduce the filter time to about half of what it normally is. You're going to cover your pool, and then you want to look at your pool maybe once a month to vacuum it, clean your skimmer about once a month, and then you want to maintain that 7.2 to 7.6 pH. And then also you can look at your free chlorine and make sure it's that 1 to 3 parts per million, and that's going to make it much easier to open the pool when you're ready to open it. If you're purchasing a pool, there's 3 different styles of filters you can get. One is sand, the other is diatomaceous earth, and a cartridge style. With sand or diatomaceous earth, as the pollutants and debris builds up, you have to backwash it, so you have to turn off the system, you have to change the pump, and it actually pushes the water back through the filter system so that it gets all this debris out of there. Then you have to recharge it. So it's a little more work, whereas a cartridge style, you put it in, and then maybe a couple times a season, depending on how large your cartridge is, all you have to do is take out that cartridge, use a hose, you clean off the cartridge, and you pop it back in. You never have to backwash it.
Right.
What's interesting about cartridges, though, is a lot of people get too aggressive. They take it to a car wash and blow it with the sprayers, and they say that you're just going to shorten the life of your filter. Just take a hose and rinse it off, and it actually does a real good job. There's not even a backwash ability on those pumps, so it's kind of simple.
We had a earth style filter when
diatomaceous earth. Yeah, they say that does the best job of cleaning, but it's a little more complex. It has big grids that you have to charge with diatomaceous earth, and you can't put too much because it'll actually slow down the flow of water, and too little, it doesn't do a good job. So it's diatomaceous earth is a little more complex, But if you're into it, they say that it will pull out the smallest particles out of the water.
And how do the sand filters work?
Sand is nice just because it's one of the simplest systems of cleaning water. You just have water going through this large volume of sand, and the top, just that top portion, is collecting most of the debris. Once your water pressure goes up, you've built up debris, you're going to turn it off, you're going to backwash it and flush that debris. And the sand, you don't have to change for 5 to 7 years. So it's kind of simple in that respect, that there's not much other than just flushing it for a long time period. A style of pool that's becoming more popular are saltwater pools.
Oh, really?
They use the salt, so they put salt into the water, and it's about 10 times less salt than in the ocean.
So this uses all special equipment, right?
Yeah, in fact, a saltwater pool is going to be much more expensive initially, but you're not using the chlorine like you would on a standard pool. All the chemical, you do the same tests, you maintain the water the same way. The only difference is, rather than pouring in or using chlorine tablets, it uses this equipment to create chlorine from the salt water, which is interesting. They say that it's easier on your eyes if you have allergies, and you're sensitive to the chlorine smell.
People describe it as like a soft water.
Yeah, they say it's very comfortable. Olympic pools, they use this. They say high-end hotels are using these saltwater pools.
Fancy.
So it's one more thing to consider. There's a lot on the internet about it. And some of them use an ultraviolet pool sanitizer. So they run, the water goes through an ultraviolet light, and it kills 99.9% of the microorganisms in a pool.
Wow.
So another interesting to look at. So for a couple of tips on hot tubs, I talked to Matt from Swim University, and he has swimuniversity.com, and he also has the YouTube channel Swim University, and it has some excellent videos on pool maintenance. He also does a couple rap videos. So
wow, talented.
He's a very creative guy. So we'll go ahead. I talked to him on the phone, and we'll listen to a few of his tips on hot tubs.
Great.
Matt, how you doing?
Good.
Cindy and I were talking about pools and some maintenance tips, and we're looking to you for some tips for hot tubs.
Hot tubs. I can do that. Well, okay, so for your hot tub, and obviously all hot tubs are different, but there's a couple of tricks that I have that I always tell people if they have questions about their hot tub. But one of the things is there sometimes gets a lot of oil on top of the water. You'll see like these oil slicks sometimes, and it's mostly from, our body oils. People have suntan lotion, people have makeup, people have hair care products, and these things end up getting into the hot tub. And because it's a hot tub, it's a smaller body of water, right? So it's really important that you keep the water as pristine as possible and clean with chlorine and bromine or whatever you use as possible. So one of the things to get rid of those oils on the top of the water is using a tennis ball, actually. So, your standard green pen, canned tennis balls, you can throw that in the filter well where your filters reside, or just in the hot tub itself. It won't get sucked into anywhere. And that actually helps attract some oils. And if you don't have a tennis ball, or the tennis ball, sometimes the hairs come off of it depending on the quality of the tennis ball you use. You can use a sponge. There's these things called scum bugs, or they're just like scum sponges. And they're very cheap. You throw them in, and they get all the oils off the top of the water. It's really cool.
That's interesting. I've never heard of that.
No?
And then how long does the tennis ball last before you have to replace it?
It doesn't last that long. It's gonna absorb pretty quickly. But anything really to absorb the oils on top of the water will work. That floats. Yeah. And a lot of people, everyone has to have a cover on their hot tub. So if you don't have a cover on your hot tub, you're crazy. So you got to think of a cover like a lid to your coffee, right? So if you didn't have a cover, all that heat's just going to be constantly escaping, and you're going to spend a lot of money on your electric bill. So it's important to use a cover, and sometimes those covers, since they're made of a very thick foam material, they absorb water, and they get this mildew smell, and they get heavy, and they have a lot of problems, right? So I just recommend using about 10% bleach to 90% water, just doing a light bleach solution, brushing the cover down on the inside and not the outside, just the inside of the cover. And let that dry out, so just keep the cover off. You can take the cover off and kind of like set it up as a teepee, right, on your lawn on a nice sunny day, and it'll dry out, and that'll be good for that. And that's something you should do. If you could do it weekly, great. Bi-weekly, even, just as good. Some other things I can think of are, you can use vinegar. White vinegar is an amazing product. It's very versatile. You can use, when you have like a scum line around the top of where the water line is.
Okay.
That's bad, right? So a lot of people get this disease called folliculitis, or hot tub folliculitis, or hot tub rash, they call it. So when you're sitting in the hot tub, you have your arms up on the edge of the hot tub. They usually get a rash around the upper top of their back, and that's where the water line is. So all the dirt and debris comes to the top of the water line and kind of sticks to the side of the hot tub. And you can just use a little bit of white vinegar to wipe that down and get that off. And, of course, white vinegar is not going to hurt the water because all it's going to do is lower your pH a little bit, which might actually be a good thing depending on where your chemicals are sitting.
Yeah, we recommend white vinegar for a lot of projects. It's amazing what a versatile cleaner it is, and you don't worry about toxic chemicals.
Exactly. I mean, I love white vinegar. I have a giant vats of white vinegar. I clean it. I clean my floors with it. I do use it for everything. Yeah. Anything I can because it's super cheap. I mean, some other things you should really do about your hot tub is, like I said, I mentioned that keeping your hot tub clean is the water and the inside of it. It doesn't matter, the whole thing. Cleanliness is next to godliness, right? So you need to keep your hot tub as clean as possible because you got to think of it this way, and this is kind of gross, and this is what I usually tell people, and it usually kind of scares them straight. But imagine if you had a bathtub in your house and you left it filled and your entire family just used the same water over and over again, right?
Nice visual.
Yeah, that's just insane, right? Well, right. Your hot tub isn't much different. It's a giant, it's a little bit bigger of a bathtub, but you leave the same water in there all the time and your entire family uses it, right? So how do you stop it from, equating to the bathtub in your house? Well, sure. Like a bathtub, you drain it and you refill it every time. Well, obviously that's crazy because, a bathtub might be, 50, 100 gallons, where a hot tub is 400 to 500 gallons. So you should drain your hot tub every 3 to 4 months. And I would say if you're constantly using it, if you're an active user with your family, you're using it every single night when you get home from work or just on the weekends, maybe 2 months. But draining and refilling is super important, and keeping the filters clean inside the hot tub is super important. Making sure your chemicals are always in balance. So get a test kit, and I mean you can use a liquid test kit they sell, or I recommend just getting test strips. They're super easy. You just dip a strip in the water, you measure it up to the bottle with colors, and make sure before you get into the hot tub that all your chemicals are right. If the chemicals are not right, you need to increase those. So if it's, really the only things you have to worry about are your sanitizer, which is chlorine, bromine. Some people use a mineral system. Some people use salt, not just regular table salt, but a salt system that converts salt into chlorine. Okay. And then that's your sanitizer. And then you have your pH and your alkalinity, which are your water balancers. So just like our tears are a perfect 7 in the pH scale, so our eyes don't burn when we cry, that's where you should keep your hot tub at. So with a hot tub pH, it's around 7.4 to 7.6 is where you should keep it. Now, pH fluctuates really drastically with any sort of introduction. You getting into the hot tub may either drop the pH instantly or raise it instantly. So there's something called alkalinity, which is a pH sort of bodyguard. It's a buffer. Right, so there's a lot more parts per million to it. When you enter the tub, the alkalinity is going to take the brunt of the change and keep the pH in check. So just make sure that those are always in check, and if they are, the sanitizer will work much, much better.
Fantastic. All right, Matt. Well, I appreciate your time. This is some great tips. And if I wanted to find you, where would I go?
So my website is swimuniversity.com, and I talk about hot tub care and swimming pool care. I also have a YouTube channel where I do a lot of videos on hot tub care and swimming pool care, and those you can also find on swimuniversity.com.
Excellent. And I'll put a link in the show notes for anyone who wants to track you down.
Awesome.
All right, thank you, Matt. I appreciate your time.
All right, thanks, JC.
Okay, bye.
Well, that was a great interview.
I enjoyed talking to Matt. He has some nice tips.
I think that wraps up this episode then.
You can subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher, and you'll hear from us every week.
If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review.
Tell a friend, and if you want to see any of our videos, you can check out our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement Channel.
And subscribe to that.
And if you want to talk to us, you can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you to our sponsor, Moso Naturals.
Does a great job. Check them out at mosonatural.com.
And thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.